Ryan Stanton here with ACEP Frontline, and today we have a special edition of the podcast. I think this one's great for the holiday season. One of those where we're get good story about success, an emergency physician, and as much as we talk about wellness and taking care of yourself, this person does, I think, because I know that if I did this activity, it would not be for my wellness. It would, I would die. But the good news is I would die early, so it wouldn't be a long transport. So talking with Dr. Ann Flower, see, I told you about the name thing. I was going to screw it up. Dr. Ann Flower, and she's the great thing about this. If you follow the news at all, which a lot of people don't, but this is one that I was traveling. I'd seen some stuff already, just on the media feed pages, but then also a couple of days ago, for me when we're recording, New York Times article on Ann and her successes. And so we'll jump to that here in a minute. And this isn't just this time of year, a lot of people right after getting to the New Year's, after Thanksgiving, want to do the couch to 5K. Just imagine that at 100, not K. 100 miles or 50 miles, but then inadvertently, which it sounds like, breaking the record on both of those, one that's standing for 31 years and one was only a year old, so probably going to have to defend that one. But first and foremost, give us a little background on yourself, because we actually have some connections over the time, and it did not involve running, but connection over time and your trip to where you are up until running.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently a full-time emergency medicine doc. I work in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I work for a private Democratic group, so we're holding strong. We work with UC Health, so those are the hospitals I work at, but my group has been independent since the 70s, which is something we're very proud of. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I did undergrad in Denver, but then went back to Ohio for medical school. My residency at the University of Kentucky. Go Cats. It was awesome for me. Worked for a few years all around Cincinnati and Eastern Kentucky before making my way back to Colorado.
All right, so you made the trip back to Colorado, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, man, I need something to do, because I'm, as a med student and doctor and all these things, I'm not busy enough as is. Kind of give us your pathway into running, and when did you know that you were actually really good at it? So
I always liked mountain sports. I was more of a skier, hiker during undergrad, and then in medical school in rural Ohio, there's not a whole lot else to do. So I started running more, signed up for a road marathon, did awesome at that, and then kept running during residency, mostly road marathons. I got to go to the Olympic trials in 2020, I think the weekend after I sat for the in-service exam. So not a lot of extra time there. When I was turning 30, Moab is one of my favorite places in the world. It's the desert, it's Utah, it's incredible. And I decided I was going to run something longer than a marathon. So I signed up to run my first ultra, which was 50 miles on my 30th birthday, third year of residency in Moab, Utah. And that was kind of the change. I realized that I actually love running mountains. I like courses that are not flat, not straight. I like getting to places people can only get on foot. And that was the start of the ultra running career.
Now, did you do running like when you were in high school and things like that? Were you a track star? I mean, were you doing that type of stuff then too?
I was absolutely not a track star. I played a lot of soccer, club, and as well for my high school. I ran track, I think just freshman year, and then I dabbled in cross country, but all of my friends played soccer, so that was where I wanted to be.
I was the runner in high school, runner-swimmer, and then it all went away, and now I only run and workouts if I feel like it's going to be short, quick, and it doesn't go well. But tell us, so your first one in Moab on your 30th birthday, great choice, by the way, because that is an incredible part of the country. But now we're talking about the idea of this year, kind of how you're progressed, because you marathons long enough, and then you go 50, and then you just kind of progress to longer. Tell us about this process of this 100 that you did, and kind of this idea of getting through there and the progress that eventually ended in taking down a 31-year-old record.
Yeah, so I have run 100-mile race in my life, and that was Leadville. I'm planning to do more, but before then, 100 kilometers, so 60 to 64 miles was the longest I had run. I had done the Leadville series leading up to the 100 miler. So I had done the marathon and then they do a trail 50 mile. And after that, I had won an entry into the 100 mile and honestly wasn't that interested in it. I was worried I was going to get hurt or broken during the 100 mile race. And for me, it was just not worth that. But after talking to some friends and talking to the race organizers, and the most incredible thing about Leadville is that it truly, the race started as a try to save an old mining town way up in the mountains in Colorado. So the race organizers are two of the toughest people you will ever speak to. Just really gritty, really awesome. And they kind of pushed me to, why would you not? Dig deep, get it done. And so then I was in and I was signed up, and the rest is history.
All right. So this is, for you, which was a record, 17 hours, 58 minutes, and 19 seconds. Tell us about this process of running this race that takes up almost an entire calendar day, and the experience you have. And just one thing that I hadn't even put into context yet in my own mind was the fact that this is at altitude of some nature. And so it's not like the world is giving you all the oxygen you need to do this. So give us the training you did up to it, and then the experience of getting into this. And at any point, we're like, crap, I'm ready to head down to the Waffle House and mail this sucker in.
Oh yeah, there was plenty of appropriate self-doubt and self-loathing that went into planning and then being signed up and being committed to do it and figuring out my crew and all of that sort of thing. But I had a really great training block going into it because I had done the 50-mile race a month before, which is about as long as most people will run before a 100-mile race. You don't want to run that many miles before you push your body to that point. So I had done a pretty proper training just by signing up for longer races in the summer to get ready for Leadville. And then I spent a lot of time on my feet, which is amazing for the summer in Colorado. My husband and I have a van, so I would do a training run and then we would go for a big hike or something like that. Because that's one of the hardest things, is just being on your feet for that long. You don't run most of these races. You're not running for 100 miles. Leadville is unique because much of it is runnable, but then you climb over this really incredible mountain pass called Hope Pass. Between miles like 40 and 60, it's mostly hiking. So it's kind of nice. You get a break from running and then you have to come back and make it back to town. So the preparation was mostly just fatigue resistance, and then also figuring out how to eat and stay carb loaded for 18 hours. The most impressive part about Leadville as well is that most people finish after 24 hours. So it's a very small percentage that get it done before nighttime. And then all of those people who do something far more impressive than what I did are then awake all night in the mountains, making their way back to town. We were going to breakfast the next day around 9 a.m. and there were still tons of people finishing, which is so incredible.
Yeah, that just blows my mind. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, with 18 hours, just the idea that even with the hiking portions of the event, that you're averaging 5, almost 6 miles per hour, the entirety of this thing is amazing. When you do these events, what's the team? Because I understand that when you had when you caught up with 2 miles left, it was, I guess, the timer guide pacer for the person you caught that was like, yeah, you're gonna do this, go and do that thing. Now, what is the process? How much of this are you alone? And then, I mean, what kind of suckers do you get to come along and try to keep you going fast?
Depending on the race. So for Leadville, you're allowed to pick up a pacer after mile 60. I chose not to until 87, just because I didn't really know what I wanted in terms of having someone pace me. Some people will have absolutely no help. There are aid stations. They are very well stocked. There's plenty of people who are happy to help you get this done. There's medical tents with volunteers who are just super big fans of the sport and want to help you all way possible. I was lucky that my husband was my crew chief, so he really wanted me to survive and be happy and be well fed and all of that. So he was in charge of making sure that they were at the aid stations for me. And then one of my best friends is a professional runner for Adidas. So she was super helpful because she knows how to do this. She's done plenty of hundreds before. She's a huge stud. So she was helpful for the technical components. And then her husband was my pacer for the last 13 miles. So I was able to see them 5 times throughout the race, and they would help me like change my pack, have my bottles refilled, all my snacks and that sort of thing. They had extra shoes and socks should I need them, but I ended up having great footwear and didn't have to do any blister management or anything like that.
Well, I saw at least one picture that looked like you were running through water. Was that part of this one?
Yes, you cross a stream at 2 points.
Well, that's kind of amazing that you didn't have any foot issues with your shoes and socks and everything getting wet at some point. I mean, I guess at some point it depends on which way you're either sweating it down and making them all wet, or it's getting water from on below. So, I mean, I guess that point there's really no difference. We always talk about. And I think in this one you mentioned in the miles somewhere in the 70s, you're like, that's kind of the wall you hit at that moment. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about in racing, the wall you hit and you break through. Marathons, it seems like is it like 13 or something like that, where people kind of break through a wall. Like your body says, this is about as much as I can do. And you're like, oh, let's keep going. It's like, all right, I'm game. Let's go. Talk about this in 100 miles. Because you mentioned the training that you really don't do much more than 50, and so I can imagine at some point you are in such shape that your body's like 20 or 500. As long as we stay fueled, that can go. Talk about that in terms of kind of keeping that motivation and body and kind of shutting down the legs when they say, I want to be done for the moment.
Yeah, I think for me, it was mostly a mental game. Obviously, your body is going to be tired. You're going to be fatigued. If you're having injury problems, it's an entirely different conversation. But I think for me, there were a bunch of micro walls that I was able to approach, address, and get through. So for the first 40 miles, I was just really excited to get to this area called Twin Lakes, which is right before the climb up Hope Pass, because Twin Lakes is a huge party. There's tons of people. I knew I was going to see my crew. So there were little rewards that I had planned out for the entire 100-mile race. It's very true that after about mile 78 was where it started to get most kind of dark for me. But that was because I had already run, climbed Hope Pass, climbed back over Hope Pass, seen my crew, and I was just going to be running by myself over not very exciting terrain for the next 10 miles until I saw them at like 87 to then do the final push toward home. So that was a lot of negotiating how far I was going to hike and then run, if I was going to take more gels, what I was looking forward to. And I think in those times, it was just very, very tiring. The miles were long, much longer than they had been. It felt like it was taking forever to get to the next aid station, to get moving forward. But my main goal was just to get to 87 because I knew that then I was going to pick up my pacer, and then it was just the home stretch.
All right, some logistic things that I want to ask, just because I am. All right, so your mind as an emergency physician is always running. We're characterized by ADD, and our mind can be in 1,000 different places, and it wants to be in 1,000 different places at every given moment. Now you've got going fast. Just doing the quick math on how long it would take me to do it if I were able to keep that 3-mile pace of 33.3 hours to knock this thing out, not counting the fact that would be if it was on a flat road and I had a bicycle or something. But you're doing this, and it's you and your thoughts for the vast majority of this. What's your mind doing for almost 18 hours as you go along? I mean, I know when I do some workouts and they're endurance type workouts, I just try to completely phase out, completely go out. And when my kids get me volunteered for these breath holding contests and pools, the most important thing you do is you don't think about holding your breath. You just start thinking about other stuff you want to think about, and then you forget how much time is there. So what's going through your mind this 18 hours as an emergency physician, climbing the mountains and saving mining towns?
There were lots of different things going through my mind. So at first, what was going through my mind, because it was dark and I did not know that headlamps have vastly different numbers of lumens, which is how bright they are. So I had the dullest headlamp. So what was going through my mind at that point was like, do not trip. That would be so embarrassing. If you fall and sprain your ankle in the first 3 miles of a 100-mile race, if your day is over by 4:30 a.m., that's going to be really terrible. But then I was talking with lots of other people. So especially at the start, you'll run the first 10 or 20 miles with the same group of people. So I got to know a bunch of people from all different parts of the world, and we talked about our lives and different stuff like that, what our goals were for the day, who our families were, what we did for work, where we were from. So that stuff's really fun. There's lots of weird math that I do in my head, like how far it is to the next aid station, when I need to be taking a gel. I was going through some areas that are very familiar with me. So when I was going by Turquoise Lake, I was thinking about trips I'd done there. I was thinking about, where my husband might be with the van and all of that sort of stuff. I try not to problem solve too many like big problems in my life during races. During daily training runs, absolutely, that's the best time to think and plan and scheme and figure out what I need to work on personally or in my marriage or that sort of stuff. But during a race, I try not to think about that stuff. So there's lots of excitement about what the next aid station is going to be like, what people I would see, and then conversations I would have with them.
All right, so you mentioned breakfast the next morning while other people are still trying to finish. And so quick tabulation. In a 100-mile race, 17 hours, 58 minutes, 19 seconds. I think that's what I remember. How many calories you go through?
Ooh, for me, probably like 80 a mile. So probably 8,000, somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000, I would think.
It's not actually as much as I even thought it would be. I thought it'd be higher than that. I thought you'd be up there in the 15, 20,000 calories as much.
We're learning about carbs these days. So calories are not that important. It's how many carbs you're able to take in, because that's what your body is going to use to fuel. So I was taking about 60 to 80 carbs per hour, which it's good. Some people will do up to like 100. Cyclists will do like 200 because they're crazy. But one of my partners did the math, and I think it's like 20 movie-sized boxes of candy in terms of sugar.
Well, you just mentioned right there is the fact that other than motivation, which would be number one, number two, why I'm not an ultramarathoner is the fact that I have no idea that we're talking about carbs instead of calories. Even though as a swimmer, we would do a bunch of carbs the night before our big tournaments and stuff like that. What is the recovery like? I get a hard workout, and for like 4 days, I'm acting like I'm 49 years old. Mm-hmm. What's the recovery like when you do these ultras? Because you did the 50, with a couple months you do the 100, and then not too long after that you're doing another 50.
I've been working on fatigue resistance for a long time now, a couple of years, just getting longer and more intense training runs. After Leadville, it was just a lot of sleep and a lot of really good food. I think I was eating probably like twice as much as I do normally, and I was sleeping at least 9 hours a night, which was amazing. But those two things I think are the most important. And then, I wasn't running much actually, it was only like a couple of days, and then I wanted to like go for a little jog again. I wasn't trying to like hit any particular time or anything like that, but lots of really good food. Nutrition is huge, and then lots of sleep.
All right, so everybody out there listening, watch Whatnot. There's actually video out there you can watch. I can't remember, it's the UC or the I think it's the article from UC that actually has the video of you finishing the crossing the finish line. And yes, your light was awful. You don't even see you till like the last. It's like a 30-second clip, and you can hear everybody yelling for you, and then you show up for like the last 2 seconds, and you just blink as you go by. But that wasn't it. You set the record there. As I mentioned, a 31-year-old record broken, even when you weren't actually necessarily trying to do so. It just happened. But then shortly thereafter, you break another record. So talk about this follow-up event. Only 50 miles, lazy. Only 50 miles.
Only 5 hours.
I know. That was amazing to me. That was what was amazing to me, is that this 100 was 17:58 and the 50 was 5 and something. And So kind of give us this follow up and how it was different. I imagine it didn't involve climbing mountains since it went so fast.
It was actually just north of Paducah, Kentucky, in southern Illinois, was where Tunnel Hill is run. After Leadville was obviously insane, right? Like I had run plenty of fast races before and done really well at them, but I had not done anything of the Leadville caliber. So I was having really interesting conversations with people who were very into running. And of course, the question is, well, what are you going to do next? And I didn't have anything on my schedule. I was thinking about doing maybe a road marathon or something like that. But I realized that I was really, really curious what I could do. And I really wanted to see what was possible toward the end of 2025. And then it looks like now I'll have a pretty hefty race calendar for 2026 as well. But I learned about Tunnel Hill as a really fast, it's not a road, it's technically a trail race because it's on an old railroad path. So it's gravel, it's packed gravel, but it's very fast. So it's a place where people can potentially run really fast times and approach world records. That 50-mile record had been held for almost 30 years until Courtney broke it last year. So it was also an Ann Trayson record, one of the goats of ultra running, had the 50-mile world record. And at that time, I think it was 5:40 was the record. And then Courtney Olson last year at Tunnel Hill broke the world record and did it in 5:32, I believe, 5:30, something like that. And then I was thinking about my marathon time, and I'm pretty consistent in terms of how fast I can run a marathon. It's usually in the 2:45-ish. And in my head, I was like, okay, well, if I can do two of those, then that puts me well under 5:30. That's like 5:15. And I knew that on like a pretty fast day that I could hopefully do something like that because I knew that I had the endurance. And I knew that I had the leg speed to do a marathon. So Tunnel Hill made a lot of sense. I contacted the race director classically 2 hours or 2 weeks before the race, kind of like how I did for Leadville as well. Told him I was interested. He gave me an entry and was super helpful. And then, yeah, I flew into Cincinnati, saw my family, hung out for a couple of days, and then my mom and I drove to Paducah to race.
And so, yeah, just in case people haven't done the math, 50 miles in 5 hours, 18 minutes, and 57 seconds. That is 9.4 miles per hour for the entirety of that 5 hours and almost 20 minutes, which is amazing speed. I would have been happy with that amount of miles per hour when I was running high school for the 1 mile, much less for doing it for 50 total miles. And now it makes sense as the speed on that one being a railroad bed. Overall, very low grades when you do, railroad beds, and knowing Paducah or southern Illinois, that area right there, other than the swamps, which people don't realize there's a lot of swamps in southern Illinois. But the railroad bed, it is relatively fast and flat, so I get it. So let's dive into it. You mentioned you got a pretty full calendar for 26. I imagine now once you break world records for races that the phone starts ringing, the email box fills up, and maybe somebody knocks on the door. Who knows? So tell us what's coming up for you now that you either intentionally or inadvertently put yourself on the map.
Pretty inadvertently put myself on the map, but now I'm really excited to sign up for races where all of the fast people are. So even Leadville is an amazing race. It's super iconic, but you don't get the professional runners that a lot of other races get. So come February, it's going to be my reckoning time to start on a starting line with a ton of really fast women. I'm doing a race called Black Canyon 100K. It is in Arizona. It is rather fast, but it is a mountain race in the desert. And I'm going for 100 kilometers. And there should be everyone from like the best trail runners in the world to ex-Olympic marathoners who should be there. So I'm pretty excited.
Where do you feel? I mean, you're not a schlub. I mean, you got the world record for Leadville. You got the world record for the 50 mile. Do you think that these folks that are established in the community are like, yeah, Ann's going to be here. We're going to have somebody right on us / past us, going to be pushing this pace going there. Do you think that, do you come in knowing, which you clearly should, that you're going, that you earn to be there, or is it going to be like everything in medicine where we have that sense of self-doubt and belonging of being there. I mean, I get that right now with all the ACEP stuff, but is that a feeling that you're getting kind of walking into this or running into this?
I think I have very appropriate imposter syndrome, right? Because I've done a couple races super fast, but like I'm not a professional runner. I just turned 36, which is like pretty old for running, right? Like this is not becoming my career. This is not something that's going to be everything for me. So I think some people know who I am. I guarantee most people don't know who I am. And honestly, that's great. I love that. That's the best place to be, especially for these quote unquote high stress events, is like there's nothing riding on my success in these events. Like my husband still loves me. I still get to work as many shifts as I want in the ER. It's not like it's going to change my life dramatically, and I think that's a perfect place to be. Like I don't get in my own head about these races. I don't get nervous. I don't get psyched out. There's obviously like way more stressful things that I do with my life. That running is like my fun zone. So yeah, I want to run fast, but like no, I'm not going to bonk or psych myself out or get too nervous. It's interesting you talk about that, like especially with emergency medicine, and I think ER docs are perfectly set up for ultra marathons, mountain endurance events. Honestly, anything weird and wonderful. No one else does what we do on a Tuesday morning, right? Like I can't tell you how many times EMS brings something in and I'm like, and what would you like me to do with this? Like I did not learn this in medical school. What am I supposed to do? But I think ultra running is very similar in the sense that there are going to be so many problems for 100 miles in the high mountains, but it's having that composure to say, oh, okay, well, this hurts. I need to fix my shoes and move on. Or it is now raining. I should address that and move on. Or, my Airbnb fell through the night before. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. So I think that our career has such a weird, wild, and wonderful aspect to it that we're very hard to stress out, right? Like we don't get nervous about that. We're going to be okay. We'll get through it.
Yeah, well, I think we naturally we are bad for the imposter syndrome, and I think that naturally our career puts us in that because we are the second best specialist at every specialty, other than the specialists that are in it. We are the second best surgeon. We are the second best pulmonologist. We are the second best OB. We are the second best pediatrician. So I think that imposter syndrome is something that's naturally within kind of our DNA, just because of what we do. Um, but that being said, I kind of want to pull everything kind of back in because you actually dove into it a little bit with emergency medicine and ultramarathoning. And that's one of the big things I've been talking about for the last few years is helping emergency physicians find their why. Find the thing that really drives you because there's so many passions, there's so many interests. For me, motorsports, flying, things like that. For you, the running, ultra marathoning, running very quickly across big tall mountains, that type of thing. With how do we pull this in as a message to physicians out there? Because you're going to be a one of one. Mm-hmm. There's probably not a ton of emergency physicians that have the drive, the interest, and the talent to do what you're doing. And but that's the beauty of emergency medicine. There's 40,000 talents out there that people can excel at, and each person has that talent. This message of how this ties into emergency medicine, longevity, wellness, health, and dealing with a profession that naturally takes from you, gives some, but actually takes over time, in making sure that we can be the best physicians for an entire career.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily have all of that figured out, other than I would absolutely encourage people to find something they're interested in and then join a club, sign up for a race, do something that commits you to being there for the long term. So, for instance, you're interested in getting into running, sign up for a 5K that's going to happen next summer, and then find a run club and be there. Because not only will it give you something as a long term goal, I mean, emergency physicians are the grittiest, right? If we have signed up for something and we have to be there, we will get it done. So I think that something like that is helpful, but also, yeah, making sure that you have a passion outside of medicine. And then for right now, for me, I'm trying to bridge. Running is obviously a very independent kind of self-serving sort of a sport. So I'm trying to figure out how to make this more than just me running fast through the mountains. And I've actually partnered with a couple organizations that I'm really excited about. One is called Protect Our Winters. They are a huge organization fighting climate change and taking care of people who participate in the outdoor state. So the next race I run, I'll be able to have a POW insignia on my chest, and hopefully it makes people think about why we are so fortunate to be able to run in these environments is because we are protecting them, and all of us want to have clean water, clean air. I'm also part of a medical nonprofit that's working on bridging mountain communities. So with wilderness first aid and trauma first response. So I'm trying to figure out how to network the running part into the bigger conversations, because I think that long term will keep me in running. After Tunnel Hill, which was awesome, there was a cash prize associated with it. And I'm in such a privileged position where the cash prize is amazing, but I probably am not the best person to use that money. And like, oh my gosh, why are we taking money out of Paducah, Southern Illinois? I don't think that's the right direction. So I worked with the race director to make sure that we were giving back at least a good portion of that money to a local food bank, because it's probably well served there. And that made me so much more excited about having won the money and gotten the record, because it went toward more good. So that's what I'm trying to figure out still, is how to make this more than just me running.
And if you are interested in the outdoors, it sounds like a great thing. For those watching, if you haven't seen the evolution and creation of the United States National Park System and what was going on before Teddy Roosevelt got involved with Muir and all his folks, and going out there, it's kind of how close we came to losing a lot of the things that we had, especially out west, and the creation of the National Parks System. And I followed that up with one last night. This is weird. This is my nerd stuff. Is sitting there watching the creation of the national parks last night, and then following that up with the Everglades National Park, and how that almost didn't come to be, with the Miami International Airport was going to be over the Everglades. So there's that was during the Nixon era. So that's good history, good things, and I strongly encourage everybody to find something, find a passion, find a history, and understand how and why we are, and then what we can do to help pay it forward to those that are coming in the future. Talking with Dr. Ann Flower, ultramarathoner and world record holder, carrying the torch forward for emergency medicine, the safest ultramarathoner out there with regard to if you're going to go down, you know where to go down. So how can folks get in touch with you? I actually encourage everybody to just Google Ann Flower. You can do ultramarathon, you can do MD, whatever. It'll pop up the news stories. The New York Times article is a great read. They have the picture of you at the finish line with better lighting. They have the video that's online from UC that's got the actual video of you running across the finish line. It's a great story. It'll make your day and your month and your holiday season better. How can folks get in touch with you if they have any questions or potentially interested in trying to keep up?
Absolutely. So I'm on social media. Instagram is probably the easiest place to find me. I try to respond to all DMs on that. I am working with UC Health, and then I think those would be the easiest ways to contact me if you're curious, or through Ryan.
Oh, thanks. Well, we're actually connected now on Instagram, so people can go that way. So you can go with the doc is in Stanton MD, or I think it's Flower Power, right?
Flower Pow, yeah.
Flower Pow. I almost remembered it correctly. So Flower Pow on there, and check it out. Very easy to find in the description. It lets you know that she's an emergency physician, so you'll know that you've got the right one and not some faux account. But as for me, you can contact me and follow along on Instagram on the doc is in. That has a lot of our TV stuff and public health related stuff as well, but making sure that you are subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you like, so that you get all the episodes on whichever one, because we love it and we love feedback. Give us 5 stars, give us feedback. We love to hear from everybody. And until next time, I'm Dr. Ryan Stanton, and this has been some ACEP Frontline.